Joining me now to talk about this and about why Syria is back in the news, why it's a problem, or what we need to know and what the Trump administration needs to do is Frank Gaffney, founder, president, and CEO of the Center for Security Policy. Hi, Frank. Welcome back to the Andrea Kaye Show.
Andrea, it's great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Okay, so Syria, back in the news. This time it involves North Korea, Iran. Who's not involved in this situation? What is going on over there? What do we need to know?
I think what we need to know is that Dinesh had it about right, and in a way it's worse. And that is that I think the kind of witch's brew that has been building in toxicity now for several years, initially a civil war pitting various factions of the Syrian population against the government, has increasingly become internationalized. And as you say, who isn't involved? You've got the North Koreans for sure. You've got the Iranians for sure. You've got terrorist organizations sponsored by the Iranians, Hezbollah for sure. You've got the Russians for sure. You've got Al-Qaeda. You've got Kurds. You've got U.S.
Wait just a second, Frank. You said Al-Qaeda. I thought Al-Qaeda was on the run and they were decimated. I thought the only thing now to deal with was ISIS and that President Trump had gotten rid of ISIS.
Well, the representations to that effect have been, shall we say, premature. And in fact, worryingly, some of the al-Qaeda elements in Syria are among the forces that we have been supporting as part of the anti-Assad Syrian democracy forces, as they've been called. The truth of the matter is they are aligned against each other when it suits their purposes. They generally default to being aligned against us, whether it's the Islamic State, ISIS, Hezbollah, Iran, or any of the other Sharia supremacists in that, cauldron of a neighborhood. And here's the real kicker, as I see it, Andrea, and that is that you put all this together, particularly the Iranian piece and Hezbollah. This is almost certainly going to translate into conflict with Israel, which will usher in another horrific, potentially exceedingly costly regional war at best, and at worst it may spill over into other parts of the world as well.
How do we stop it?
I'm not sure you can stop it at this point. I think what you may be able to do is to attenuate somewhat how vicious it is, and that will take, I suspect, not only a greater degree of leadership than we've expressed and provided under both President Obama and President Trump to date. It's going to have to involve, I think, probably the Iranians being dissuaded from their current conviction, which is that they're going to have their way. And it will put them in position to strike very easily Israel. Israel's doing what it can to signal that it really does have red lines, and Iran better not cross them, or it will be attacked. At least its forces in Syria will be attacked. But I think at this point, the best thing that we can do, to be frank, is to stand with Israel. And I'm glad to see that Prime Minister Netanyahu was here with the President of the United States today. He's addressing AIPAC, the American-Israel Public Affairs Committee, tomorrow. And I hope the signals that will be sent throughout this period, much as with the decision to put the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, Israel's capital, that the United States is going to stand with the Israelis and recognize that it's really holding frontline ground in the war that is being waged against us as well.
The Iran nuke deal, that was something that President Trump was very clear about on the campaign trail, that it was a horrible deal, that Iran had already violated terms and agreements on it, even though they were supposed to be. First of all, a lot of it was done in secret. There's some certain aspects of it that we to this day I don't think we know that were negotiated. Some of it was supposed to be, they were supposed to be monitoring themselves, so President Trump campaigned that he was going to tear up the deal. He's got people in his advisors. I think McMaster might be one of them. Could be Rex Tillerson as well, telling him that he needs to stick with the deal. What do you think he needs to do?
I think he needs to get out of it, Andrea. I think that further pretending that this deal is in our interest simply translates into legitimating the government of Iran, who is our avowed enemy, who has used the $150 billion that they secured as part of this accord to intensify the threat that they pose to Israel and to our interests more generally in the region and ultimately to us as well. Make no mistake about it. That nuclear weapons program is going forward. The ballistic missile programs are going forward. They will be able to threaten us in due course. And I think that, getting out of the deal means resetting, not only for us, but also for our European allies. This whole idea that we're really bringing Iran inexorably into the so-called family of nations, the international community. It ain't so, and we're better off recognizing it is not so and proceeding accordingly.
It's never going to be so. These are people that teach their children to chant death to America in their schools every morning. They have vowed their entire ideology is about destroying the infidel and destroying Western civilization. It's like Dr. Ahmed said to me at one point, I think it was on the 5th anniversary of 9/11. He said the terrorists they're at war with Western civilization. Don't you people get it? He said, don't you understand? That's what they're about. I mean, there are no easy answers here, Frank, because we've got the Democrats that did this deal with Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton that now has North Korea shooting off and about to have, plenty of ability to destroy us. And then the same thing happened there with Iran, and President Trump has just inherited quite a mess. And on top of it, I feel like the people surrounding him are appeasers. Isn't McMaster the one that wants us that says a lot of the same crap as Obama, that, ISIS doesn't have anything to do with Islam? He's one of those kind of people, isn't he?
Yeah, I am not a fan of General McMaster. I think that he's been a terrible choice. I believe that he has been serially insubordinate to this president. Mm-hmm. I think his judgment on policy has been almost unfailingly lousy, and his personnel choices to serve in the National Security Council have been appalling, including firing people who were sound and Trump loyalists and replacing them with people who were, at best, Obama holdovers and at worst, people who I think, like him, really disagree with this president and his policies. It's been a disaster. Is
he the one who got rid of KT McFarland?
Among others, yes, ma'am.
Wow, yeah. Got to shift gears really quickly if we can in a couple of minutes. DJ Carrot Sticks, do I have 2 more minutes? I don't know if you saw the New York Times back. Remember when President Trump said, Scandinavia and Sweden were gone and that it was a mess over there with radical Islam. Oh, my gosh, there's no such thing as no-go zones. Everything is great. It's fabulous over there. Well, the New York Times finally published an article saying, things are pretty bad over here with the migrant gangs. Of course, they conveniently left out, the ethnic or ideology behind these gangs going on over there. But yet we still have these judges here. President Trump can't seem to get anything done in terms of banning people coming here from and stopping that scourge from happening here. I'm frustrated on that as well.
Yeah, and I think most Americans are, at least anybody with a lick of sense, Andrea. Here's what we're seeing play out in Europe, and Sweden is unfortunately just one of the countries in which this is now evident. We're watching the migrants who have arrived mostly from the Middle East and North Africa, some from elsewhere in Africa, some from elsewhere in Central Asia, but overwhelmingly Muslim, and more to the point, more or less Sharia adherent, which I think is the best way to describe the problem. They're people who believe that their doctrine of sort of supremacist Islam must rule the world. And most of them are fighting-age young men, and they are working assiduously to destabilize these Western European countries where they can, Eastern as well. The Western ones have mostly let them in, and the Eastern ones have mostly tried to stop them from coming in. And you have no-go zones, you have rioting, you have rapes on a massive scale, you have instability growing by the day. In Sweden, they've actually had the Prime Minister talking about civil war. as though that may well be in prospect. You have the chief of police there pleading for help because his police are leaving in droves, and he is unable to maintain public order, in part because of these so-called no-go zones that have now sprung up and are becoming essentially Sharia law adherent parts of Sweden that do not respect or otherwise adhere to the laws of the land. This is now, I'm afraid, a problem not just for Europe. It is a forecast of what the same sorts of folks, again, Sharia supremacists, not all Muslims, fortunately not all of them want to live under this horrific Sharia program, but those who do seek to bring it here as well. We should make no mistake about that. Mm-hmm. We have to stop bringing more jihadists in. That's something Donald Trump promised to do in the campaign. You're absolutely right. Federal judges are trying as much as they can to impose the old Obama program, interfere with his ability as the commander-in-chief to exercise the kind of authority and discretion that he needs to keep this situation from becoming worse in this country as well.
Well, difficult times, and it's really tough to do the right thing when the political correctness has just gotten so entrenched in our society that you can't be honest anymore about the threats that we face, and our enemies are using our political correctness and our own laws and our own kind hearts against us. And anyway, thank you so much, Frank. How can people read your stuff and hear your podcast and your work?
It's all available and much more at securefreedom.org.
Thank you, Frank Gaffney. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you, ma'am.